if you're already homeschooling, if you can put in the chat a 1 next to your name. If you're homeschooling just purely for the fact that your child's school is closed, if you can put a 2 next to your name. Or if you're considering homeschooling in the future, but you need a bit more tips and guidance, and say if you can put a 3 in there, that would be greatly appreciated. So as we're going to be introducing ourselves on the association, I will start off. As I've already mentioned, my name is Anishka Sami. My husband and I, we've got the privilege of being able to homeschool our only child, who is nearly 5. We've been homeschooling him since he was 18 months, using a particular curriculum which delays formal academics until slightly later. And at the moment, we're focusing on character development, as well as developing a relationship with God by using the Bible, nature, and also building on different practical life skills. And one thing that I will say that I have definitely learned from homeschooling is that homeschooling differs from family to family. So just because somebody has one child, it doesn't necessarily mean that the homeschooling life is any easier. There's somebody else who may have 3, 4, or 5 children. And the anxieties that I had when I first started, they have very much subsided now, and they've been replaced by the fun and enjoyment that I've been having during this particular period that I've been able to homeschool our son. So at this time, I would like to hand over to any of the other coordinators who we have on our group to be able to introduce themselves and just say a little bit about what they're doing.
Hi, can we introduce ourselves?
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, we're Mike and Vicky. We home educated our 2 sons for about 11 years. They're now 21 and 18, so we've kind of done that bit. We saw it really as an extension of our parenting. Sometimes I think when they were younger, I called it education, because we
Okay, it's frozen.
Mr. Vicky, I'm not hearing you. It's frozen. Until we can get them back, Sister Angela, do you want to step in?
Hi there. Hi, my name's Angela, and my husband and myself, my husband's Joseph, we home educated our children for over 16 years. That makes me feel really old. But then again, our children are currently 18, 21, and 23. We've really, really enjoyed the process. I wouldn't have it any other way. It's just been an amazing journey. You get to really know your children. And our daughter, she was in school till she was about 7. And during that time, she couldn't wait to be homeschooled, actually. So that was really good. My son was 5 at the time, and our youngest, I say youngest now, but she's a teenager, she hasn't been to any formal education in terms of school. And we are area coordinators for Area 7. And we just want to be able to share and connect with all the families out there and just help you on the journey. It can be challenging, but the highs definitely outweigh the bumpy road, the bumpy lows. So that's us.
Hi.
That's great.
So Mike and Vicky are back.
Oh, good.
We are. I don't know how much you heard and how much you missed. Our system just went down, I think.
2 boys.
So how much did you hear?
2 boys.
Two boys, that was it. Okay, they're now aged 18 and 21. We home educated them for about 11 years, taking the older one out of school when he was 7. I think we just saw it as an extension of our parenting, really. And another way I would have put it when they were young was it was educating mother, because we all learnt alongside each other. And the main thing, I think, was we just had fun together. And the area?
We're area coordinators covering all of the southwest of England, pretty much.
Okay, shall I go next then?
Yes, go for it, Brother
Okay,
Joseph.
so my wife and I have been home educating, we're newbies, so coming up 3 years this year, September, will be 3 years. We've loved it. I think our only regret really is not starting earlier. But you know, there's no time like the present, as they say. Like I said, we really love the journey. We've got 2 girls, one who just turned 12 today, and the other one is 5, will turn 6 in June. And we kind of work with the association in kind of like the London North area, so kind of like Enfield, Watford, you know, that side of London. So if you have any queries and you live in that area, then certainly reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to answer any questions you have.
Lovely, thank you. Sister Jacqueline, were you trying to come in before?
Yes. Hi everyone. We're Winston and Jacqueline Brown, although Winston is not actually here, but the children are here as well. We cover Scotland and Northern Ireland, and we've been homeschooling since our eldest child was 5 years old. She's now 16, and we have a 14, a 12, and a 9.5-year-old as well. It's been an interesting journey, full of, there's been moments of stress and anxiety, especially at the beginning. But I think what made all the difference was discovering sunlight. And for us, the road then became very, a lot smoother. And we started to enjoy homeschooling and enjoy all the aspects of teaching them as Jesus would have been taught. And at the same time, unlearning. God had to unlearn a lot of stuff, and we're still unlearning many things that we had brought into homeschooling. And so it's also been a journey learning with them as well as teaching them. Let me thank God.
Amen. Sister Jasmine.
Oh, I'm muted. Hello. Yes, hi everyone, and it's lovely. It's like a little virtual reunion with people that I know. Only about 5 people, but it's still nice being amongst friends. I've been homeschooling from when my daughter was in the womb, so 9.5 years now. Amen. As it's amazing. She will be 9 in December. Prior to this, I was a missionary in Japan, where I met my husband. But now I am a sole parent living in between Northampton and Wales at the moment because of this strange pandemic that's happening. I was a mainstream primary school teacher prior to becoming a missionary. So 21 years of teaching in mainstream. But now I'm a TEFL teacher, so I work online and I teach Chinese, Taiwanese, and Japanese students English, praise God. I've taught over 3,000 pupils across the world, but none has been so challenging and so upside down, walking on my head, than teaching my own child. So don't think that you need to be a teacher in order to homeschool, because literally I had to unlearn everything that I've learned thus far. It has been rewarding, it has been fulfilling, and I've become the ultimate Bible worker with her because she has so many questions, and typically my students don't have this many questions. I work from home, so like I said, I'm an online tutor now, so if you want to ask any questions about how to juggle home, working, homeschool, etc., I can answer those as I'm currently doing it now. I'm also an artist. So for my budding artists out there, I would love to be able to raise a whole generation of Bible artists. That is my dream. So I'm still working towards that. And we do live in South Wales. So I don't know where my district is, but I'm currently in South Wales, in between Cardiff and Swansea. And that's where I should reside. But right now I'm in the Midlands area. So thank you. Thank you for the privilege of being able to help you.
Thank you, Sister Jasmine. Just to interject, I forgot to mention I'm in the Milton Keynes area. There are other coordinators I can see who are here with us. We've got Sister Kizzy, we've got Brother John Mark, we've also got Brother Trevor. If either of you want to jump in and just say a little bit about yourselves.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kiswanda Lawrence, and wife of Neil Lawrence, who previously was the chair for the Homeschooling Association, and also the suppose pioneer in starting the Homeschooling Association, which has been around for quite some time. Perhaps many of you are familiar with him. Like Jasmine, we have been homeschooling our only child since the womb, basically, following the principles that we understand in true education. And it has been quite a journey, especially for myself as the mother. It's a wonderful journey as I see him developing. My son, his name is Seth. He is quite bright and practical, and so we do quite a lot of practical things together. We focus quite a lot on Bible and nature, and we're dipping into a lot of things, mainly the sunlight at the moment, and my Bible first. So that's the Bible emphasis, but for nature, we basically develop our own program, and for this season, we're focusing on gardening. So we're actually doing that extensively, and especially in this wonderful weather, we have been planting out quite a few things that we started back in February. My son absolutely loves it. He's very practical, as I said, and so that's a wonderful experience. Sorry, my thing times out because I put some limitations on the on the internet on my mobile.
Okay, it's gone from me. You might have to come and set me up here.
So yeah, so at the moment, my husband should be online as well, but unfortunately, difficulties connecting. And he's actually developing an online portfolio as a support for parents. You know, I think this session will be focusing a lot on structure. And sometimes if you are homeschooling, you know, the challenge is how to structure and how to fit in and what to fit in. And so his inspiration really from God is to develop a program that parents can actually use to document and streamline the work that they're doing with their children. And I think it's a very good program that you might be interested in contacting him separately about in conjunction with what we're doing today. So I think that basically covers what we are currently looking at the moment. And we live in Wales, we live in the country area. So thank God we have lots of nature study that we can do, and we can just spend lots of time absorbing the beauty around us. And we are very, very grateful. He was born in this house where we live. So he is very Welsh, and he very much loves walking and enjoying the beauty of God's nature. So I think that's about it for us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Anishka, I'm going to suggest we move on, because otherwise I'm just conscious of our time. And then hopefully towards the end, if we have a bit more time, we can kind of introduce the others. So I'm just going to, if that's okay.
Can I just interject? Brother Joseph, Neil is having some challenges with connecting. If you'd be so kind to send him the registration link again to his email, please, if you're able.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So we've talked about kind of what we're going to be going through. So let's just get right into it. So we've kind of done the introductions, and like I said, we'll come back. I mean, the whole point of it is that there is support out there. You don't have to be on your own. You don't have to feel like you have to figure things out for yourself. When we started, we had support around us. We had people like Angela Woodburn and Joseph Woodburn, who were really, really gracious, invited us to their home and kind of almost handheld us until we were a bit more confident in terms of what we were doing. So I think the message really is that, you know, you don't have to feel like you're on your own. So just very quickly, you know, some quick facts really about homeschooling, just to kind of put your mind at ease more than anything else, really. You know, how times have changed. You know, I was doing a bit of history about homeschooling, and it actually said that homeschooling has always been common among the country's elite. You know, the royal family have all in the past been educated at home, including the current queen herself. Obviously now it tends to be less the option for them because, you know, we have public schools and private schools, and they will obviously have access to these schools. But homeschooling is not kind of as perhaps as weird as it may have been conceived in the past. And like we've learned, you know, those who were, you know, in the higher echelons of society would actually homeschool. It was actually the common people who were sent to school, essentially. And education as we know it now came about through the Industrial Revolution, when, you know, they needed workers to work in the factories and they wanted them to operate and think in a certain way, and that's how we kind of had standardization. But prior to that, it was a normal thing to do. It was a common thing to do. It was a very accepted thing to do also. I mean, one of the things about homeschooling which kind of really appealed to us was the fact that you can really personalize the education. And I think most of us know about Venus and Serena. You know, they were homeschooled by their parents from a young age. Obviously, they saw athletic prowess in them and kind of geared their education towards that. And no one can say that in terms of what they set out to do, they haven't been successful. And the thing about it is that every parent has different aspirations for their children. In this case, for them, it was sport. But again, the principle there is the fact that we can customize the education to the needs of our children when you're home educating, rather than simply just being, you know, boxed into a system which may actually not work for them. They may not learn, they may not have that learning style that is being used in school. And so home education allows you to personalize the education for your children. You know, it's said that good character, oftentimes when we think about education, we want our children to achieve, we want them to have the best grades, we want them to have, you know, academic excellence. But the fact of the matter is, good character always precedes academic excellence. So really, as parents, we should be looking at the character formation as of our children first and foremost, even more than the academic excellence. And you'll find that the academic excellence will naturally follow the character that is developed. So what are some of the character traits that we should be developing? We should be looking at things like, you know, reliability and honesty and generosity and humility and diligence and hard work. And, you know, these words sound old-fashioned, but if you look at the greats of society, if you look at the giants of our communities, you will find that oftentimes, you know, is their character that precedes them. And that's what ultimately comes out. So it's really all about kind of where do we put our priorities. And homeschooling for us as an association, we place a lot of emphasis more so on character development. That's not to say we ignore academics, but we find that it becomes a natural follow through from having good character. Number 4, I mean, this is a big one. A lot of parents ask this, but I don't have the skills to home educate. How am I gonna, you know, home educate my children? And that's one of the big myths, because in most cases, parents are the best place to actually educate their children. You know, you know your children's ability, you know their tendencies, you know what they like, you know what they dislike. You spend more time with them than anyone else. You know their aptitudes. So there's so much advantage as a parent But oftentimes we're often led to believe that because we're not trained as teachers, we don't have the ability to educate our children. But that is a misconception, and is not true. We as Christians believe that God says that parents are qualified to teach the children, and actually commands us to teach our children. We see this in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 6 to 7, where it instructs us to teach our children when they rise up, when they lie down, when we're walking with them by the wayside. It requires dedication, yes it does. It requires unselfishness, of course it does. It requires also the wisdom of God to show you how to educate your children properly, which he will abundantly supply if we ask him. God has made the family his basic training institution, and it is his desire for parents to accept the responsibility of teaching and training their children, and he will enable them to succeed. So don't allow anyone to tell you that because you've not been trained as a teacher, you're not qualified to teach your children. You're more than qualified to teach your children. And the last point before we move on is to begin with the end in mind. In other words, why are you educating your children in the first place? Is it so that they can get, you know, the best job in the city? Is it so that they can, you know, live in a big house? Or is it that you want them to drive a nice car? Whatever the case may be in your circumstances. But if you remember, number 3 was that character development. And for us, we believe that there is life beyond, you know, what we're living right now. I mean, when you look at what's going on now, with everything that's happening around us as Christians, we believe that there is life beyond this. And so what in part of our education is to actually educate our children to prepare them for the life beyond this life. Yes, they need to be able to fit in with society and mingle with society and be able to influence society, but ultimately we're preparing them for a better place, which we as Christians consider to be heaven. So those are 5 quick things. Hope that helps. I'm going to hand over to Kashina. Kashina is one of our home educating parents, and I'll just allow her to introduce herself, and she will share her screen and kind of share a little bit of her presentation. And after that, we're going to go straight into our questions and answers. We'll take the questions that were sent to us by email first, and then if there are any other questions that hasn't been covered, then we'll take those as well. So I hand over to Kashina.
Thank you. Hi everyone. Okay, I'm gonna try and share my screen. Hopefully it works. Okay, can everybody see my screen? I'm gonna assume that's a yes. Can you all hear me? Can you just nod if you can hear? Okay, perfect. Fab, thanks. Okay, so thank you for inviting me. My name is Kashina. I am a mum to 4 children. We have 6-year-old triplet girls, and we also have a 3-year-old son. So this picture is about a year old, so they're like a year older now. And I have my fantastic husband, who's also called Joseph. There's lots of Josephs. And we have been homeschooling since they were born. It wasn't actually our plan. Our plan was not to homeschool. However, God had other plans, and we are following the plan that God has for us. And it has been a journey. And I think that's what Joseph was saying before, and everybody else who has spoken. It really is a journey, and it takes time. It does take time. So I found myself being asked a lot from friends, from family members, from strangers, like, how do you manage to get a routine with 4 children? Like, how do you even get out the house was one of my questions. And so what I decided to do was to support and empower other people to be able to do routines. And this is where we are now. Okay. So I just wanted to ask, what do you think about when you hear the words routines and schedules? You can put it in the chat quickly. I'll give you like 20 seconds because I only have 10 minutes. But when you hear the word schedule, routine, what do you think about? Order, military, regular plan, order, structure. Love it. Yeah. Mundane, order, you needed lots of different ones. Usually, Thrive, consistency, amazing. People think about it being boring, rigid, there's no flexibility, I can't do it, I don't like it, it doesn't work. However, I'm here to tell you that routines actually allow for flexibility. It does provide stability for children, especially, proven scientifically as well. And it brings order to the home. I know a few people said order as well. And one of my favorite Bible texts, which I have to admit was not my favorite Bible text at the beginning, and I'll tell you why, is let all things be done decently and in order. So I was not the most orderly person. My house isn't the one that you find everything in its place. It just wasn't me. However, I read this text and realized I had to do something about it. And routine was one of the ways to go about it. The reason why I wanted a routine, if I'm totally honest, was when the girls were about 5 months old, we kept on going to church late, and it would frustrate me that we were late for church. And I was like, having triplets is not an excuse for me to be late to church, because if I was going on holiday, I'd get them on time. And this is where the journey of the routine started. So how do we put together a simple routine? One of the ways, well, the main way I get my clients to start is to do meal times first. So your breakfast, your lunch, and your dinner. Set the times that you want for your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And Ellen G. White tells us that we should have set meals. Scientifically, having set meals is a bonus as well. But it helps to plan your days. It breaks up your day. So especially when the girls were younger, when they were babies, I didn't have to think about the whole day or getting through the whole day. I just had to get from when they woke up to lunchtime, and then from lunchtime to dinner time, and from dinner time to bedtime. And so it breaks your routine up a lot, so it's a lot more manageable. Then think about when you want your children to go to bed and when you want them to wake up, and also for yourself, when you want to go to bed and what time you want to wake up. And then add in your family worships. So I'm not saying that God is last. However, once you know when your meal times are, you can work when you want to do your family worship. So for me, our family currently, 7:30 is when we do family worship, and that's when we focus a lot on character building, or it guides our thoughts for the day. For the week, we have a character trait that we focus on, and we start that in the morning, so it's fresh in everybody's mind. And then we go on to have breakfast at 8 o'clock. So whatever your times are, everybody's times will be very different. And then once you have those set, those are your anchors, your meal times, your bedtimes, your family worship, those are the anchor points. Then you can put in your activities for your children, whether it's in the garden, whether it's, if you have schoolwork coming from school for your children, when you want to put that in. If you're working as well, then you can put in your work schedule, all around those anchor points. And those anchor points, everybody has to know. Your children need to know, your husband needs to know, you need to know. And then everyone's just all on the same road together. So no one routine fits all. And the reason why I say that is because everybody's family is so different. There's no way I can give you a routine and say, here, make this routine yours. It doesn't work that way. We have people from single families. We have people with multiples, people with single children, 6 children, 10 children. Everybody's so different. Some people work nights and others work days. Some are working full-time and some are part-time. So because everybody's family is so different, the routine has to really be personalized to you and your family. So one thing that I want you to remember, there's 3 things altogether. Number 1 is change. Routines change, and that is okay. If you have a baby, you know they're going to go through so many stages. You will have the routine set, and then they start teething, and then your routine's out the window, and you have to redo your routine, and that's okay. It's very natural and very normal for that to happen. The 80-20 rule. This rule basically says that 80% of the time when you finally get your routine together, it will work together. But there will be days when it doesn't work the way it's supposed to work. And that's okay too. You're not the worst parent, you're not the worst mom. It doesn't mean you can't get it together. It doesn't mean you're not a good dad. It doesn't mean that it's not possible. It's just life, like life happens. And just because you have a bad day doesn't mean that you're a bad parent and you can't do this. One, you can do all things through Christ who gives you strength. And two, just as humans, like this happens. And I actually remember the first time I felt that I had this perfect routine and it all fell apart, and I felt like the worst mum ever because no one told me that it was okay to not have your routine perfect every day. And have fun, like make your routine fun. Make sure that there's family activities in there. Make sure that you have time for yourself. Make sure you have time for your personal devotion. Make sure it's enjoyable. Like it has to be enjoyable, because if it's not enjoyable, like some of the words that were put out, it becomes militant. It just becomes boring. It becomes very rigid, and no one enjoys it. So make sure your routines are enjoyable. They're supposed to be enjoyable. Okay, so here's just a few, there's 3 schedules. We have tried lots of different schedules. And once again, depending on your personality, depending on who you are, will depend on what schedule works best for you. So this one is more of a rigid schedule, people might say, but this is more for the person who's really organized, who likes their days to be accounted for, their minutes and their hours. So this is a half an hour schedule. Once again, it can look different for everybody. We do have a lot of outdoor play and garden play. Actually, because everybody is off school, there's loads and loads and lots of different things on Facebook that you can use. So one of the things that my children are really interested in at the moment is baby signing, because we wanted to start them on the British Sign Language, and they've really picked it up really quickly, actually, quicker than the Spanish, which is actually quite annoying. You also have this one, which is a little bit less intense. This is blocked, so you block hours and what you're going to do in those hours. Once again, what you want to teach your children is going to be very different. If you have your children off from school because of COVID, the likelihood is what you're going to be teaching them may be very different to what I might be teaching, or those who are doing curriculum such as Sunlight are teaching. But this is another way to put it in blocks. So maybe for 2 hours in the morning, that's when they're going to do their work from school. So it's blocked out instead. And 1 hour afterwards, they're going to go out and play, or they're going to have free time. And this type of schedule is probably my most favorite schedule because it's very flexible. It's more for the person who likes to just go with the flow. So everything we know is set. We know breakfast, lunch and dinner. It doesn't have to be on there. We know when we're going outside in the garden, we know it's just a given. However, if there are subjects that you want to do, instead of giving it a set time, you just know this is what we're doing on this day. So for example, maybe on Thursday, gardening would usually be between 10 and 11, but it's raining. That's okay, because you could do the gardening in the afternoon. So as long as you do it during the day, at some point during the day, it's okay. So how do we stay consistent? Prayer. Commit everything to God in prayer. Whatever it is that you want to change, pray about it first, because when we try to do it in our own strength, the likelihood is we're going to not make it. Start yourself off with a great morning routine. There's lots of different morning routines, but one of the top tips that I have is, one, do not look at your phone. Don't use social media. Don't do anything with your phone until you have completed at least one of your goals for the day. Have a good breakfast in the morning. Make sure you get up, get showered, get dressed. I know it sounds funny, but actually, even though we're at home, you become more productive when you get dressed and you wash yourself and you wash your face and you're ready to go. Drink a glass of water as well. Plan the night before. So a good morning routine actually starts from the night before. So the night before, spend 10-15 minutes thinking about what it is that you want to feed yourself, your family, your children the next day, breakfast, lunch and dinner. What activities do you want to do with them? What work do you want to see happening? What do you want to do? Plan all of that the night before, because when you plan it the night before and it's all out of your head, the next morning is more likely to go a lot smoother and it's less stressful. Any activities that you need to put together and prep, you can prep as well. Get the family on board. make sure the family is on board, especially if you have older children. As long as they're involved, they're more likely to go along with the routine. Have an accountability partner. If you're starting off with a routine, be accountable to someone. Let somebody know what it is that you want to do. It could be your spouse, it could be a really good friend. If you want to speak to me, and that way it makes a difference. I don't want to say you try more, but you do really try more when you know that you have to report back to somebody. And rest. For the mums who have babies, for the mums who have little children, it's challenging. It is challenging. And it becomes very tiring. If you're waking up during the night a lot, don't feel bad that you can't wake up early in the morning before the children wake up. Just still try to have that productive routine, even if you're waking up later. Like, don't beat yourself up about it. So pray, commit your plans to God, have a great morning routine, plan the night before, get the family on board, have an accountability partner, and rest. Rest is important. If your body is telling you it's enough right now, have your 20% off, like have your day off, relax. It doesn't have to be go, 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 go. You don't have to do school at home. And that's the mistake I made at the very beginning. I tried to replicate schooling or the school system, the nursery at home, and it was just the most stressful thing ever. One of my favorite texts at the moment is, though a righteous man falls 7 times, he rises again. Mainly because there's always something that God is trying to work on me with. And whether it's routines, for me at the moment it's patience. And some days I think I've got it, and then the other day I haven't got it and I want to give up. But actually, God says a righteous man falls 7 times, but he rises again. So if you're having a bad day, it's fine. Tomorrow is another day. We get back up again in God's strength and we try again. Don't beat yourself up about it. And that's mainly what I want to let you know, is you can do this, because you can do all things through Christ who gives you strength. You are doing a great job. Don't compare yourself to somebody who's been homeschooling for years. And if you're homeschooling, don't compare yourself to the person who seems like they've got their homeschooling together. It doesn't happen overnight. Whether you've been homeschooling before COVID, the whole pandemic COVID, or whether you're just starting to homeschool, it doesn't happen overnight. And I really felt sorry for a lot of parents who had this perfect routine and they thought that it was going to go really well, and it's coming into week 2 and week 3 and they've realized that, hold on a second, it's not sustainable, because they were really trying to micromanage every moment of the day, and that doesn't always work very well. It takes time. It takes time for you to find out what works for your family, and don't be your worst critic. I know I'm very good at it. I'm very good at saying all the things that I've done wrong for the day and all the things that didn't go very well and I could have done better here. And I have a friend who said to me, how about at the end of the day, you think about your positives instead? So I challenge you to, even if it seems like a terrible day, how about you think about all the positives instead? Because actually, whether you do work sitting down at the table or not, I can guarantee you've taught your children. Guarantee you. So, insert your name here. You can do all things through Christ, which strengthens you. Romans 4:13. If you do have any questions, if you do want any help just trying to figure out a routine that works for your family, feel free to send Joseph a message for my number, or you can private message me on here, and I can give you my number. You can go to my website or email. I'm very happy to help people with their routines. Sometimes you just need to say it out loud to figure out what works best for your family. But yes, please, I'm very willing to be used and be a blessing to others. So I hope that was helpful.
That was very helpful, Kashina. Thank you so much for that. Really appreciate that. Okay, so we're going to go straight into our questions. Like I said, I'm going to take the questions that were sent to us in advance, just to be fair to those that did. And then if we have a bit more time, I can see lots of questions in the chat as well. We'll try and take some of those as well. We may run a little bit over. If you need to leave for whatever reason, obviously you're more than welcome to leave, but just apologies in advance if we run a little bit over. So we're going to take our first question. Those that are going to answer the question, if you don't mind, putting your video on so we can see your lovely faces when you're speaking to us. So I'm going to just go straight to the first question. Just give me a second while I bring it up. Okay, so Jasmine, Jasmine, your question is, and this was one that kept coming up over and over and over again. You know, how do you balance working from home and homeschooling? Oop. Sorry, going ahead of myself now. So the question was, how do you balance between, hold on. Right, okay, sorry. How do you balance working from home and homeschooling?
Not I, but Christ. I don't even know how I'm able to stay up this late, Brother Joseph. I'm actually in my classroom right now. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a TEFL teacher, that's teaching English as a foreign language teacher. And I had been praying since 2013 to be able to work from home so that I can homeschool my daughter full time. Prior to that, I was working in school 1 day a week and it was hellish. And I didn't want to go back, but God was sending me back so that I could prepare the State of Education talks. So that was quite good. But 2018, I applied for my 6th job teaching online. First it was teaching online art, and that didn't work out. And then teaching online English. And then by the grace of God, I finished my last day in school 2018, and I got the job for the job that I'm currently doing in 2018 in August. I teach in the morning. So I teach between 5:30 and 7:30. Before this schedule, I taught in the lunchtime. So like Sister Kashina, I set things in meal times so that I wouldn't be taking away my time from her. So she'll be eating and I'll be teaching. And what's lovely is she can come up into my classroom and nobody knows and nobody particularly cares because I'm in my house. So it's beautiful. Working from home, working online. This is before, you know, COVID. So my lifestyle hasn't changed that much. I'm still homeschooling. I'm still working online. The only difference is that I'm in my parents' home. But what's nice is I bought a curtain. It's like a portable classroom. Can you see that, everyone? So I literally have this in my car so that no matter where I am, I can still work. I worked at family camp last year. I went into one of the offices, did some classes, and then went back into the main arena. And I can just do it anywhere. It's like a little mobile classroom. So I really encourage and recommend being able to work from home. It doesn't have to be online, but it needs to be something that you can do in the home that doesn't disrupt the routine.
Okay, thank you for that. I love that curtain, by the way. I'm gonna have to get one for myself. Okay, so the next question is, I can get it to work. Okay, Vicky and Mike, how do you ensure consistency in whatever your chosen routine is? So how do you ensure that you kind of, you know, whatever you've chosen, you maintain a level of consistency?
Find it and get another one.
I think our thinking was to not have too tight a routine. So I suppose a bit like the last routine that was on the screen from the lady who talked to us. These are the things we're going to achieve this day, but not have too tight a time on it. And yeah, not worry when you don't always achieve it. But yeah, I think that's what we did. We kind of had just a few things set for each day that we wanted to fit in around the meal and everything else.
Yeah,
So
just going to add to that, I think what we need to remember with our children is that the whole of life is a learning experience for them. And so whatever it is, whether they're sitting down at a desk or doing something, or whether they're doing something practical, the whole of life becomes a learning experience for them. So it is kind of a whole education.
Now,
not setting too many things in a day means you can keep consistently with those things. If you've got too many, you struggle to keep up.
Yeah. And I've got to say, when we started, what you just said, Mike, was a real breakthrough for us, because we always felt that, you know, they were only learning when they were sat at a desk. with a pencil in their hand and a note paper in front of them. And that was the mentality that we had. But like you said, Mike, when we kind of realized that actually, you know, you might be in the supermarket and you can do a lesson in the supermarket. You can get them to add up all the shopping by the time you've got to the till, and that's maths, you know, it's part of maths. You know, you could be in the garden and you could be, you know, doing teaching. So that's a real tip, you know, for a lot of us. And once we kind of, it's a mindset change. And once that mindset changes, it actually takes a lot of pressure off yourself, that you can use every opportunity as a learning experience. Okay, so let's take another question. I'm just going to go through them quickly because I know we've got some in the chat as well. So Angela Woodburn, how do you motivate yourself and your child or your children to actually, you know, commit to doing what, you know, you're wanting to do?
Okay, yeah, that is a really good question. Yeah, because we homeschooled our children for quite a while. We got very experienced in this. I think one of the key things is that you and we as parents really need to enjoy what we're doing. And this can be challenging sometimes, but we really need to not take it so, it's not saying not take it so seriously, but enjoy the time. It really is a privilege to spend time with our children. And one of the things to remember as well is your child or your children, they actually really want to be with us. I was looking at, as parents, I was looking at a study, and it asked all about 20 children and what it is they wanted from their parents. And these children weren't even home educated. But what was interesting is they all said exactly the same thing. And that was that they wanted to spend time with their parents. They wanted their parents' time, they wanted their attention. So really, you know, initially it can be quite overwhelming to think, okay, I've got all day, especially if your child has been in school. So one thing I would definitely say is really enjoy it yourself. And don't be so hard on yourself. That's been mentioned earlier as well. I think sometimes we try and be super parents or super mums, super dads and be perfect. But just letting them know that we're all on this journey together. So another thing is get them involved in the daily planning of the schedule. So whatever your schedule is, whether it's more on the more rigid side or it's a little bit more flexible with the blocks, learning, or you know, some of them that have been suggested, definitely get them involved. Now, when we first started to do this, I was a bit nervous. I was like, oh no, what are they going to put? What are they going to suggest? You know, that we play all day, you know, but I was surprised. They came up with some really good ideas, and it gave the schedule that we had balance. So having 2 girls and a boy, and we had that interest in balance of, you know, boy interest and girl interest. Sometimes the girls weren't as keen with what the boy wanted to do and vice versa, but we're working together as a family, and as we did things together, it really helped all of us. So I think it's really key to find out your children's interests, and we do have an ultimate goal, but definitely involve them in it. And then as you involve them, you'll just see the joy on their faces as they see their schedule reflect something that they've suggested, and it will motivate yourself as well. And it's really important, again, not to get burnout. You don't want to get burnt out. Being, as I said, supermom, you don't have to fill every second of the day with a planned activity or with schoolwork. However, you can do it in a way that has been mentioned again already. Learning takes place from the moment you wake up. And again, you can make the environment that they're in. Like for us, for instance, one of the things that we did was we love music in our home, whether it's singing or instruments. So we really surrounded them with lots of with instruments when they were younger. I mean, before my son could even, you know, hold a guitar, hold it properly, he had this guitar, and he was determined that he was going to play it. So we really surrounded them with lots of instruments, the guitar, the piano, and at times they weren't interested, but that environment of having different things, whether it's indoors and, you know, getting out in the garden, just have lots of interest and different things that they can be interested in. And it worked out in the end that our son he just tried to play every instrument that he could get his hands on at the time. So, you know, even now we'll have family worship and he will go between the violin or the piano or the guitar. So it's just really get to know your children and enjoy the time. It really is a privilege.
Okay, thank you. So what I'm hearing you say is involve them.
Absolutely.
And also, it's not as difficult to motivate a child if they're doing
Not
something
when you're
that they enjoy
motivated.
doing. So
Absolutely, yeah.
finding out what they enjoy and kind of build it around them. Okay, fantastic. Okay. So our next question, how do I keep my children focused? Back to you, Jasmine. So the question here was really, how do we keep them focused on the task, you know, for the day, whether it's in blocks, whether it's a timetable or the activity, how do we keep them engaged and focused?
So having spent time in mainstream, I know that the structure of mainstream, and this is specifically for parents who have been thrown in the deep end, so to speak, there would be a textbook. And so, for example, in mathematics, they would be assigned a problem. Can you solve this problem? How many liters do I need to make this, to fill up this specific container or volume, whatever? What you need to be able to do is translate that textbook written problem into real life. So now you've got the textbook problem, you can go into the kitchen and fill up a measuring jug for volume and do it practically. That would keep them motivated. For any child, any age, if you start pouring water or doing something with hands, automatically the child is That's typically how children work. Obviously, every child is different, but as soon as you start using your hands or constructing something, especially for boys, or transferring something into sound or into visual, then you will have them motivated and they won't be able to stop playing in the water. If they're under 7 and you're doing something with water, it'll be hard to stop them playing with the water. Trust me. So if they're slightly older, then make slightly harder problems. I put something on the group this afternoon because I was so amazed that McCuney made a hexagonal prism from wooden planks that my mom had left in the garden. Now my mom had taken them apart. She knew what it looked like. And she said, I don't know how to put this back together. And instantly McCuney, she's only 8, said, I can do that. And she just formed this hexagonal prism. And I just thought, wow, that was geometry, problem solving. And if I'd given to her on paper, she would have struggled.
Yeah.
She would have said, what? What's a hexagonal prism? What? But she stayed there for 40 minutes putting this plank together until the end. And I thought, wow, as soon as you go visual, audio, kinesthetic, that means touching, you've got a child motivated. Trust me.
Okay. Did you want to say something, Vicky? No? Okay, so, but again, thank you so much for that. That's really helpful. So it's what you're saying is make the theory into real life, make it practical, make it real, involve them in the process, and that would help to keep them focused in terms of whatever problem they're being expected to solve. Yeah. Okay, we've got another question. I have children of different ages. How do I manage that? Okay, important question. And that came from a lady who had 3 children, different ages, one in year 10, I believe it was, another in year 8, and another in year 5. Now, we had a similar problem with this. I say problem because it's, you know, it can be considered to be a problem if, depending on how you look at it. But that was something that we certainly had to tackle. Our children, the age difference is just over 6, so one's just turned 12, the other one's just about to turn 6. So again, straight away you might be thinking to yourself, okay, well, how do I kind of manage at different levels and they're at different ages and different, you know, stages of development, etc., which is all true. But again, it's all about kind of just being able to kind of think constructively, think outside of the box, and kind of like what you said, Jasmine. If we think about bringing things in reality, when we go to work, we don't actually work with everyone all the same age, do we? You know, not everyone in your workplace is all 40 or 30 or whatever it might be. You know, we work with people who are way above older than us. We work with people who are less the age than we are. And so that's part of the child's development. In fact, what you'll find is that children, younger children who work with older children, you'll find that they'll pick up very quickly. And the other principle, the other way around, also is that older children can be involved in teaching the younger children. And that then solidifies their learning and helps them to kind of cement what they're learning also. So again, kind of rather than seeing it as a problem, look at how you can work around it. Look at how you can involve the older children. Look at how you can involve the younger children in that whole process. I believe that's a helpful way and a helpful approach, and that's helped us a lot. And the older one, for example, I mean, she started learning piano when she was about 3-4 years of age. Now she's at, you know, kind of level 5 going on level 6, and you know, she's able to teach her younger sister, you know, up to the early ages, and she enjoys doing that, although sometimes she does find it a little bit frustrating, but it's an opportunity for them to come together and bond as well. Okay, next question. Okay, will my child miss out socially? I'm sure those of us who've been homeschooling for a while, it's a common question that we get, you know, how are they going to socialize? How are they going to interact? Kizu or Nishka, do you want to kind of contribute on this one?
I think on this point, it's for myself personally, I went to school, and school is not where you learn to socialize. You know, there's a lot of bullying, there's a lot of negative social influences in the school setting. So sometimes it's easy for us to refer and think, oh, when I was in school, we were a lot around quite a few children, so that means we were learning social skills. But actually, it's in the home that we learn social skills. That's the first thing. And if we're a Christian family, then the Bible, I believe that's the first basis for us to understand how to socialize. Those Christian graces, you know, that we want our children to possess, we have to reflect it and we have to teach it. And as they see how we socialize with others, I think they learn social skills. So that's the first place. And another principle that I keep in mind with regards to socialization is children hardly learn a great deal from their peers. They will perhaps pick up quite a lot of negative things from them, which you have to undo. So I would suggest, where it regards socializing, is that we should be with them as much as possible. So even if they have other children, you know, in their age range, you know, it's good if they're socializing in a context where you are able to hear and supervise them and play with them as well, you know. So, you know, if there are other children, other families, doing activities together is more fulfilling, I think, than just having them away from you playing at the side and you are over there with other parents socializing, which is sometimes how we find it, you know, especially at church. You know, we have all these different Sabbath school classes, you know, geared towards different ages, but it's a very, very rich opportunity when children and parents of different age ranges, I think, when they can actually socialize together, you know, it's more enriching, it's more fulfilling. Children of different ages as well learn quite a lot from each other. So I think it's a challenging time, but it's a very rich time for families to get close to one another right now. In this state of lockdown, you know, it's a very good opportunity to really get to know our children, as opposed to just thinking they're missing out on being with their friends. And also just evaluating who are these people we are calling friends is very important to understand whether they are actually giving leaving a very positive impression on our children. So I know it is challenging. It's a different way of looking at it, but it's very important for us to be very prayerful when it regards social interactions. But at the same time, there are other things that we can do. Personally, as a family, we are limiting our media with Seth, our son. We're taking it very, very slowly so he doesn't get too glued onto all these different media platforms. So at the moment, he is very much involved in natural, real things as opposed to this online world. It will come in time, but at the moment, I think we are just taking it slowly, so we wouldn't really engage him in too much online activities personally. But I suppose, you know, each family needs to be prayerful as to what they need to do.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Kizu. Thank you for that. Okay, so those were the main questions that were asked. There were lots of questions, but they tended to fall within those categories. So I'm just going to hand over to Anushka. If there are any questions kind of you picked up in the chat that hasn't been answered, or indeed if anyone has a question that they feel hasn't been answered and they want to kind of raise it, you can just unmute yourself and ask a question and we'll try our best to answer it for you. If we don't know the answer right now, we'll certainly kind of get the information and make sure that we do come back to you.
One of the questions that was posed in the chat, it was kind of addressed before, but it can probably be re-emphasized. It was asking the question, can you homeschool if you're a single parent? It is something that Sister Jasmine had spoken about in her intro, but it's something that she could possibly answer now again.
Yes.
So I guess the question is how?
Well, I work from home. I have a schedule. I'm very much like my sister Kashina. I need the schedule because if I don't have the schedule, then I can't work. And if I can't work, then I can't homeschool her. So it's circular reasoning. So if she knows the schedule, she knows when mommy's going to work. Now she doesn't know because I've changed my schedule so that she's asleep when I work. And like Sister Kashina said, you need to go to bed early. So we have to finish soon already, so that I can wake up for 4 so that I can work. So yeah, it's fine. My work finishes at 7:30. So far, by the grace of God, we're able to live on what I earn with supplements. So I still do my art classes with my budding artists, but that's more ministry. I'm selling my artwork online. I've actually got 3 strands of income. One is very much interactive. That's the online one where it takes a lot of my time. But the other 2 is kind of background income. It's kind of what they call a side earner. But that's what Sister White is counseling us to do. You shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket. You've got lots of talents. You know, look at what you have in your hand and you can use that to be self-supporting. So I've got actually 3 streams of income, which is sufficient so far. I'm not rich, but I don't really want to be. It's enough for me and my child. So yes, you can do it. It isn't impossible. God wants us to do it. And I said to God, if you want me to do it, you're gonna have to help me. And he has been. So yes, in short.
So I would just add to that, you know, sometimes when you start this homeschooling journey, there's changes that you have to make. And everyone has to make different types of changes. But one thing that it does do is it helps your creativity, because now you have to think, you have to kind of tap into other skills and gifts and abilities that you probably didn't even think existed. And you can utilize those and turn those into income as well.
Another question that was in there was, how can we help fathers find their place in homeschool and get involved to support their wives?
There you go, Mike. It's all yours.
Well, one thing that I can say, whilst Mike is possibly finding his words, is bearing in mind as mothers and fathers, we've all got our different skill sets. And for instance, in our home, my husband Jason, he's very talented and been able to do things with his hands, doing very practical things, which I may not be as much so. And it's one of the things which our son is very interested in. So like, for instance, our son, he enjoys washing the car. He enjoys putting the oil in the car, or the screen wash, and doing planting and digging, as he calls it. And if we've got things in the house that need to be assembled, like chairs and tables, he likes using screwdrivers and hammers and so forth and stuff like that. So I would encourage you, looking at the skill sets between the pair of you, there may be something that's where the father may not be as good in one particular aspect, looking at an area of his strength that he will be able to still be a part of the homeschooling and so forth, and being able to do things with your child or your children.
Okay, I'll build on that one a little bit. For me, I've always been out at work, and so I've always seen perhaps I've had a limited role, but what I was able to do, that when our oldest came to doing his GCSEs, I was able to help him through with doing practice past papers, exam papers and things like that. And so that was a real big help to him, because these were subjects that Vicky wasn't really quite so comfortable with. And I'm pleased to say that the subjects that I gave him the practice in, he came through with flying colours. So, and in fact, he probably did better than I did in those subjects as well. So, you know, just grateful to have the opportunity to pitch in and help when I have the time and with the skill sets that I have.
And I'll just add to that. You know, when you're homeschooling, it's a partnership. You know, there's no kind of boxing each other. You support each other. You know, like Mike said, one might be strong in a particular area, you chip in. I mean, for us personally, we had to change our schedules. We were both running our own business. Fortunately, we've been able to adjust. I work predominantly from home, and I'm very much involved in our children's home education. But like I said, you know, when you make that decision, you'd be surprised how creative you can be, and how resilient you are as a parent actually to make things happen. Is Anushka still here? All right.
Yes, I'm still here. I'm just looking at some of the questions which are in the chat. One of the questions which I just came across was that there's somebody whose son is in mainstream education. He's autistic and wants to home educate but doesn't know where to start. Please help.
Right. Hi. We've actually messaged the lady to get some contacts for us from you, Joseph, because it's probably a very individual thing. But I would say it is possible, depending on the level of autism your child has. If your child has, I think it's like a
high functioning.
No. It's the SEN thing or something, special needs allocation at school, then you would have to ask permission to take them out. It works slightly differently than a child who doesn't have an actual, I can't remember what it's called, the SEN something or other. Can anyone remember?
Is it a statement of education?
That's it, yeah. If they have that, I think you have to ask permission to take them out, which is slightly different from other kids where you can just do it anyway. So that's something to consider, but otherwise it is possible. But if anybody wants to talk to us, because our son has Asperger's syndrome, we have a little experience.
Another question was, how can you know when you've given your child enough education?
When the Lord says, "Well done, good and faithful servant." I don't think you ever stop learning. Even I'm learning now. So yeah, when Jesus comes, it's learning.
Well, I mean, yeah, even from a Christian perspective, even when Jesus comes, we're still going to continue learning. We'll spend all of eternity learning. So education is one of those things that you don't generally graduate from, as it were. You just build on what you've learned, and that's what makes life exciting, isn't it? Learning new things all the time and expanding your minds. The reality is the majority of us actually use only about 10% of our brain's capacity. So what about the other 90%? So so learning is a continual thing for sure.
Yeah, I just wonder, I don't know who asked the question, but whether they're wondering when it's time to kind of think about them going on to do something else. Some of us send our kids off to do GCSEs somewhere else. Some of them wait and they go and do A-levels somewhere else. Some go and do university somewhere else. It's probably about whether we think that what the steps is they want to take next, and whether we've actually got the expertise in that particular subject, and how ready they are to hit the real world as well.
And
Okay.
I was just going to say, just to add to that question, this is where when you're at home with your child, you can make that determination, because when they're in school, that decision is taken away from them. So when you're educating at home, or home educating, if your child is 12, 13, 14, 15, and they want to take the GCSEs, that's the decision that you would take. If you want to wait a little bit longer, you can do that as well, and you'll know when they're ready. The beauty about home education is that you don't have to stick to the national curriculum, so you can work the program around the needs of your child. So don't feel pressured that they have to achieve X at a certain age, and if they don't, it means that they don't reach the standard. You can plan around your child's needs.
I think if I can just say, there is possibly quite a lot of pressure when homeschool children reach a certain age. They want to fit in with their peers, and they're thinking if their friends are going to university or their friends are doing this, they want to be doing the same thing. And so the challenge comes to the parent as to whether they feel equipped to prepare them to do these things. So I think that's one of the hurdles that parents have to just know, that the focus of their education is more about character development. And I suppose in the earlier years, it's very important to establish that, so that they're not led by their peers, but they're leaders. You want to develop them to be leaders, to actually challenge their peers to say, okay, so why are you going to university? Or why do you want to do these things when God has given us guidelines as to how we are to perhaps, engage our energies into his cause? Well, that's one aspect. But the other aspect also I thought was, you can have, if you're not following a set curriculum, you can have like ways of assessing progress. So I suppose part of it is thinking, okay, is my child progressing according to his ability? And you can have programs, I think my husband is actually working on that at the moment, where you're able to journal and record what your child is learning, as well as assess the progress. And you can have external means of assessing that progress as well. So you as a parent can assess, as well as others can assess whether they're actually at the stage of their potential, so that you're not keeping them back. So that's possibly something that might help to address that issue or that concern from that parent. I hope that helps.
Okay, I was just going to say, Nishka, I don't know if you have another question, but I was going to maybe say time for one more, and then we can kind of just round off, because I recognize that we've gone over our time. So
okay, one other question is that, is it the mother's duty only to create a schedule?
I think we kind of touched on that earlier, but for me, myself and my wife were both involved in creating the schedule, because at the end of the day, we all have to work to that schedule. And sometimes I would go as far as to say involve the children in that schedule as well, because they're the ones that are going to be expected to kind of live up to that schedule, as it were. It also helps them to take ownership. It's amazing. Sometimes when we may cook something for our children, and they may say, "Oh, I don't like it. I don't like it." But if they cook it for themselves, that very same thing that they cooked is now absolutely delicious, because they cooked it for themselves. And the same principle applies. Involve them in the process, and you'll actually find that they're more willing to kind of go with those guidelines that you've set. So that's what I would suggest. I would suggest as a whole family thing. Like I said, homeschooling is a whole family affair. It's not a mother's responsibility, or although yes, it is true that in most cases mothers do, but it is a whole family affair.
If there are any questions which we haven't addressed at this particular time, I believe Brother Joseph has put the email address of the association in the chat, so that if we're able to do something else sometime in the not too distant future, we'll then be able to address any of those questions which you might have.
Okay, I've just put the email address again in there. Somebody was asking whether we can do something for in France, because there's no such kind of organization. It's something that we can have a discussion. I've put the email address. If you just send us an email, and we'll certainly, it's going to have to be Jasmine leading it, because she is the only one that speaks French here. I certainly don't.
I nominate Sister Natalie. I can only greet.
Okay. But before we go, we just wanted to give you... Oh, you can...
He speaks some French.
A bit.
A little bit.
Maybe.
He did A level.
Okay. Okay, before we go, I was just going to say we're planning to do another one in 2 weeks' time, which is the 3rd of May. Now, we just want to get an idea. I mean, we've kind of tried to be general. We know there's different groups, people who are homeschooling, people who are not homeschooling, people who are thinking about it. So we try to keep it really general. But if there are any particular topics that you'd really like us to delve into in a bit more detail, if you don't mind just having, just put something in the chat so we can access it later, or you can certainly email us, and we'll look to kind of plan that for the next 2 weeks. So we'll be looking at the 3rd of May at the same time at 7:30, and we'll look at more specific things. So if it's more about scheduling, if it's about curriculum, if it's how do you transition from not homeschooling to actually homeschooling, how do you make that leap? Whatever it is that you're thinking that you'd like us to do, we'll try and go with the majority if we can. This won't be the last. We'll try and do some more in the future. So if we don't cover it in the next couple of weeks, we'll certainly cover it again in the future. So while you're doing that, I'll just share with you also just other ways in which you can reach us and other resources. Okay. So we've just talked about what other webinars, which is kind of the only way we can communicate at the moment because we're on lockdown. But hopefully once things lift, we can do some physical meetings as well, which will give us the opportunity to show some practical skills and how you can go about homeschooling and schedules and actually seeing it in action. So in terms of resources, obviously our website, spahomeeducation.org. You've got websites like Education Otherwise, which are very good for like the legal aspects of home education. How do you ensure that you stay on the right side of the law? They have things like template letters to help you. So they're good for that. Chess UK, again, is a Christian association. You've got Sunlight Education, which is one of the curriculum that a lot of us use. Not everyone uses it, but it is a popular one. It's a free one, which obviously is very helpful. But more than that, it focuses on character development as well as academics. And a lot of bright children have come out of that particular program. You've also got Remnant Prep, which is great if you're just starting out and not sure how to start. It's an online school run in the UK by Angela Woodburn, and they kind of will support you. The school runs in the mornings from 9 till 12, different ages. So again, if you want some more information, you can go on the website and go to the UK section of that website. But it's very good for supporting the education if you just need a bit of help to make that transition. Or if indeed the question was asked, if you're a single parent and you just need some support as well, you can look at that website also. Kizu was talking about her husband Neil. Neil runs an education support service. His contact details are there. Looking at supporting parents in terms of education and how they can make sure that their home education is kind of run in a way that they would like it to run. So just providing general support. So there's some resources there. Again, send us an email and we'll just have a look finally in the chat if there's anything in particular you want to talk about in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll round off and finish.
The number on there actually, Joseph, is incorrect, but I've sent a message on the chat with the right number.
All right, okay. Okay. Okay, so the recording, yes, it is being recorded. I will send those out. If you would like a recording, just say yes just type yes next to your name so I know to send it out. I don't want to send it out if you don't really want it. So if you do, just type yes and I'll make sure that you get a copy of the recording sent to you. It was also being streamed live on Facebook, so I can also send that link as well and you can replay it if you'd like. Yes, Princess. Okay, my daughter keeps prompting me that Cassandra, did you want to ask a question? Did you have your hand up?
Is it okay to still ask it?
Yeah, go on, because she keeps saying, oh, she wants to ask a question.
Oh, bless her. No, I was just wondering, regarding, because it's a lot to do during the day, how do people get their meals cooked in time? Because cooking, teaching, you know, it's the whole thing. Sometimes I find it difficult.
Can I just say, Cassandra, I haven't mastered it, but I try to get my son involved in the cooking, and I set an hour for that, so that's a part of his education, cookery. So otherwise, like now, we're doing quite a lot of gardening, and he likes the outdoors and the weather is good. So I cook in the morning, or I cook 2 days, and we eat the same food for 2 days, and that's okay. He doesn't mind. Or I try and cook the night before. It just all depends on how you think the next day is going to go, and you can try and plan around it. But don't worry if you haven't mastered it. It's just what it is.
I would say the same, but I would also suggest as well, preparation is kind of key. That kind of takes out some of the time. So like if, say, for instance, you've gotten a spare half an hour and you know throughout the course of your week, you're going to be using a lot of onions or garlic or, you know, vegetables and so forth. If you've got them peeled and chopped and so forth in like the refrigerator, so that as and when the time comes when you're going to be cooking, that it's going to take a lot of the process out. But as the sister said before, it's a work in progress. We will get there.
Well, I was just going to say, Valerie, there's a lady called Valerie who's a professional chef. So perhaps we can require her services to kind of just show us some simple meal plans that we can do.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, her food is just amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, I was going to say, just remember, you're not intensely educating all day. The kids do have free time to play, so you can prep when they're playing.
Can I say something as well?
Yes, of course you can.
Yeah, I think just my children are older now, so I'm at the further end of it. So I will definitely say that getting them involved when they're younger, they really want to help. And we got a schedule in place where the children actually would help to cook on certain days, and then as they've got older, they obviously they do certain days now. So that's a bonus, you know, as you've got older, because it's wonderful. But it really is. You just take that time, and at first, again, depending on their age when they start, they can be quite young, but as they go along, and we just have everyone here in our home cooks quite differently, and so you have that variety. So definitely, get them involved, absolutely, from a younger age.
Sorry, Joseph, can I just say something as well? For those with younger children, I found it really challenging when the kids were younger. Maybe because my kids were at the same age. So at 2, it was horrendous because they were all around my feet at the same time and they were very clingy. But bulk cooking became like amazing. So instead of making one meal for one day, make it 2-3 times the amount and then freeze it. And if you do like 2 of those, so for example, if you have Sunday where you have more help and you have that day is the cooking day, if you make 2 or 3 different stews, but make 2 or 3 lots of it, then you can freeze it. That's 6 days worth of food that's in the freezer. I found that easier with the girls. And now they're a bit older with help, but when they were younger, that really, really helped. Because my husband was around at that time on a Sunday, so it was easier to get a lot of the cooking done and then just freeze it. And I just told myself it's not going to be for forever. One day they're going to get older and I can cook every day. But do what you need to do while they're younger, especially.
Okay, I think we've come to the end of it. We will send out emails of future dates and also topics that we'll be covering. You've got our email address. If you think about the topics that you'd like to discuss, please send them through to us, and we'll try our very best to obviously cover them to support you as much as we can in whatever way that we can. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Enjoy tomorrow. And enjoy homeschooling. Enjoy it. Enjoy the time with your children. It's the most amazing thing. Okay, good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night. Oh, bye.
Good night. Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, prayer.
Hello.
Oh, yes, we didn't pray yet.
Pray.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Good night. Thank you.
Maybe you should pray, Angela.
I think so. If we can just bow our heads for a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for this time that we've spent. And we thank you for all these families. We thank you for the children that you've blessed us with and young people. And I pray, Lord, that everything that has been done this evening will continue to bless the families. And as we learn more about you on this journey, we will reflect and our characters will just become more like you. Bless each of the children from the homes, and be with the parents. And just I pray that all the parents have been really encouraged this evening as they understand and comprehend and have tools to continue to be with their children in this special time, and to realize what a privilege it is and a blessing. We thank you and we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much.
Amen.
Thank you so much.
God bless you.
And
Who was
you
the lady?
too.